She is just a nurse, not combat personnel, Commander Ryan Venom Patterson told his SEAL platoon as they prepared for the mission briefing. Kylie Rogers had been assigned to their forward operating base for 3 weeks, quietly tending to minor injuries and routine medical duties while the real warriors handled the fighting. But when improvised explosive devices tore through their convoy and 12 SEALs lay bleeding in the hostile desert, Patterson watched in stunned silence as the just a nurse transformed into something he'd never witnessed before. In 18 minutes under enemy fire, Kylie Rogers saved more lives than most combat medics see in entire deployments. Lieutenant Kylie Rogers was 26 years old, Wisconsin-born with steady green eyes that could assess trauma injuries faster than most emergency room doctors. She'd completed her nursing degree with honors before enlisting in the Navy, drawn by the promise of serving those who served others. Her medical training was extensive, but 3 weeks at Forward Operating Base Sentinel had consisted entirely of treating minor ailments. The mission briefing that morning had been routine. SEAL Team Delta was tasked with reconnaissance patrol through the mountainous desert region. Commander Ryan Patterson led the 12-man team with confident precision. His second-in-command, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Razor Chen, coordinating tactical movements. Medical personnel will establish aid station at Grid Raw Fronts Delta 7, Patterson instructed. Standard protocols: treat casualties, coordinate evacuation, maintain communications. Kylie nodded from her position at the back. For 3 weeks, she'd heard the same instruction: stay in the rear, handle routine medical issues, don't interfere with combat operations. The convoy consisted of 3 up-armored vehicles moving through the desert valley. Kylie rode in the trailing vehicle with communications equipment and medical supplies, monitoring radio traffic while scanning the deceptively peaceful landscape. The improvised explosive devices had been perfectly positioned. The first IED detonated under the lead vehicle, lifting the armored truck into the air before slamming it back in a twisted mass of metal. The second explosion targeted the vehicle that swerved to avoid the first blast. The third was command detonated when the convoy stopped, destroying communications and severing contact with base support. Kylie's vehicle avoided the explosions but was thrown sideways by concussive force. When she regained consciousness, her first thought wasn't about her injuries. It was about the 12 operators scattered across a kill zone designed to eliminate American forces. Medical emergency. Chief Chen's voice cut through radio static. Multiple casualties, urgent surgical required. Through smoke and debris, Kylie could see the devastation. The lead vehicle was destroyed, its occupants thrown across desert sand. The second had rolled twice, leaving passengers with traumatic injuries. The third was burning with figures moving weakly in the wreckage. Commander Patterson was crawling toward his wounded operators, blood streaming from a head injury. "Rogers, we need immediate medical assistance." This was the moment when everything Kylie had trained for came together in 18 minutes that would redefine combat medicine. Kylie grabbed her medical kit and her M4 carbine, a weapon she'd qualified with but never expected to use, and ran directly toward the casualties. Her focus was entirely on the wounded SAS who needed immediate intervention. The first casualty was Petty Officer Rodriguez, thrown 20 meters from the lead vehicle. His left leg was compound fractured. Arterial bleeding was severe, and he was going into shock. Kylie dropped beside him and began trauma assessment. The arterial bleeding had to be controlled first. She applied direct pressure to the femoral artery while preparing a tourniquet. "Stay with me, Rodriguez. You're going to be fine." Rodriguez's eyes were glazed with shock. "Doc, how bad?" "Bad enough that you're going home to your family. Good enough that you're going to walk your daughter down the aisle someday." The tourniquet stopped the bleeding, but Rodriguez had lost significant blood volume. Kylie established the VACs and began fluid resuscitation while scanning for the next casualty. That's when enemy fire started. "Incoming! Take cover!" Patterson shouted as automatic weapons erupted from surrounding hills. The ambush was perfectly planned. IEDs to stop the convoy, then small arms fire to eliminate survivors. Kylie faced an impossible situation. She had 11 more casualties requiring attention, but treating them meant exposing herself to enemy fire designed to kill anyone moving in the open. She made a decision that would be studied at every military medical school. Instead of seeking cover, she would treat wounded SAS while returning fire with her M4. The second casualty was Chief Chen, who had been driving when his vehicle rolled. He was conscious but disoriented with obvious traumatic brain injury and internal bleeding. His vest had absorbed impact, but Kylie could see signs indicating serious trauma. "Chief, stay still. You've got a head injury and movement could worsen it." Chen tried to sit up, reaching for his weapon. "Doc, we need to establish perimeter." "I've got the perimeter," Kylie replied, firing controlled bursts at muzzle flashes on the ridge. "Your job is to lie still and let me keep you alive." She stabilized Chen's head with a cervical collar while monitoring vital signs. The head injury was serious but manageable if treated properly. Internal bleeding was the bigger concern. Chen needed surgical intervention that wouldn't be available for 30 minutes. Kylie administered pain medication and established IV access while keeping watch on surrounding terrain. Enemy fighters were advancing using rocky outcroppings for cover. The third casualty required crossing 20 meters of open ground under direct fire. Petty Officer Williams had been in the communication vehicle when the third IED detonated. Shrapnel had caused massive chest and abdominal trauma. He was conscious but in severe shock, losing blood at a fatal rate. Kylie low-rolled across desert sand, dragging her kit, while enemy rounds kicked up dirt around her. When she reached Williams, her injuries made her clench with professional concern. "Williams, talk to me. Tell me about your family." Williams's breathing was rapid and shallow.
"Tension pneumothorax. Got 2 kids, Doc. 7 and 9. "What are their names?" Kylie asked while preparing chest tube insertion. The procedure required precision while lying prone with enemy fire passing overhead. "Sarah and Michael. They think I'm a hero." "You are a hero, and they're going to keep thinking that for 60 years. The chest tube immediately relieved pressure, allowing Williams to breathe effectively, but he still had significant abdominal injuries requiring surgical repair. Kylie packed the wounds and established IV access. By this time, Patterson had established defensive perimeter with remaining SEALs, but their situation was deteriorating. They were surrounded, had limited ammunition, and multiple casualties requiring evacuation. "Rogers, medical assessment," Patterson called. Kylie looked at casualties she'd treated and 8 more needing attention. In conventional situations, at least 6 would require immediate helicopter evacuation to survive. "Commander, 12 casualties with varying trauma degrees. 3 urgent surgical, 5 priority, 4 delayed. But I can stabilize them if you give me time." "How much time?" Kylie was already working on Petty Officer Martinez, who had suffered severe burns when his vehicle caught fire. Burns covered 30% of his body with smoke inhalation and excruciating pain. "Give me 18 minutes. I can bias 18 minutes. What happened next would be discussed in SEAL teams for decades. Kylie moved through the battlefield like she owned it. She would stabilize one casualty, engage enemy positions with precise rifle fire, move to the next casualty, provide life-saving intervention, return fire when necessary, and repeat with mechanical efficiency. Her M4 became as much a medical tool as her instruments. When enemies tried advancing while she treated casualties, she would interrupt procedures just long enough to deliver accurate fire that drove them to cover. Martinez's burns required immediate fluid resuscitation and pain management. While establishing IV access and administering morphine, Kylie simultaneously directed suppressive fire at positions trying to bracket her location. "Martinez, stay with me. You're going to be fine. Focus on my voice." Martinez was barely conscious. "Doc, hurts." "The pain will get better. You're going to heal completely." The 5th casualty was Petty Officer Santos, the vehicle gunner when IEDs exploded. The blast caused traumatic amputation of his left hand and severe lacerations across his upper body. Santos was staring at his amputated hand with shock that could become panic. "Santos, look at me, not your hand," Kylie commanded, while applying a tourniquet. "You're going to be fine. This is survivable, and you're going home." "Doc, my hand." "Your hand is gone, but your life isn't. We'll control bleeding, stabilize you, and get you to surgeons." She packed the amputation site with hemostatic dressings while enemy fire continued impacting around their position. Santos needed immediate surgical intervention, but Kylie's field treatment would keep him alive. The sixth casualty required a decision against every protocol she'd been taught. Petty Officer Lee had massive spinal trauma from the vehicle rollover. Standard protocol required complete immobilization to prevent further injury, but Lee was lying in open desert where enemy fire could reach him, and moving him might cause permanent paralysis. Kylie made the tactical decision to move him. "Lee, I'm moving you to cover, but stay completely still. Don't try to help me. Let me handle everything." She dragged Lee to cover while maintaining spinal alignment, a procedure requiring both medical knowledge and physical strength. Once behind cover, she stabilized his spine and assessed for additional injuries. The remaining casualties clustered near the burning vehicle. Johnson had shrapnel wounds to legs and abdomen. Brown had severe concussion and possible skull fracture. Davis had penetrating chest wounds. White had multiple fractures and internal bleeding. Kylie moved between them like a medic possessed, providing life-saving treatment while enemy fire continued to impact around their position. Her M4 had become an extension of her medical practice. Controlled bursts to suppress enemy advances while administering IV medications and performing trauma procedures. The 11th casualty nearly broke her heart. Petty Officer Thompson was 19, the youngest team member who joined SAS to serve with elite warriors. IED blast had caused traumatic chest and abdominal injuries requiring immediate surgical intervention. Thompson was conscious but fading, fear in his eyes when someone realizes they might not make it home. "Thompson, listen to me. You're going to be fine. I'm taking care of you, and you're going home." "Doc, am I gonna die?" The question hit Kylie like a physical blow. She'd been asked this in emergency rooms, but never while performing surgery in combat with enemy fire passing overhead. "You're not going to die. Not today, not here, not on my watch. You'll recover, serve 20 more years, and retire as senior chief." Thompson managed a weak smile. "Promise?" "I promise." The 12th and final casualty tested everything Kylie had learned about combat medicine. Petty Officer Morgan had been thrown from the lead vehicle with traumatic injuries to multiple systems: head trauma, chest injuries, abdominal wounds, fractures to both legs. In civilian hospitals with full surgical teams, Morgan would require hours of surgery with uncertain outcomes. Kylie had worked 16 minutes. She had 2 minutes left to complete her promise to Patterson. She looked at Morgan's injuries and made another decision that would be studied by military medical personnel. She was going to perform field surgery that wasn't supposed to be possible outside hospital operating rooms. Using trauma surgery techniques and equipment from her kit, Kylie performed emergency procedures that stabilized Morgan's injuries and gave him realistic chances of survival. She repaired arterial bleeding, relieved chest pressure, stabilized fractures, and managed pain, all while enemy fire continued. 18 minutes after the first explosion, Kylie stood in the battlefield and keyed her radio. "Commander Patterson, medical assessment complete. All 12 casualties stable for evacuation. No KIA, all survivable injuries with proper surgical intervention." Radio silence lasted 10 seconds. "Rogers, repeat that transmission." "All 12 casualties stable and ready for evacuation, sir. No fatalities."
Patterson looked around the battlefield that should have killed half his team. 12 SEALs who had been dying 18 minutes earlier
were now conscious, stable, and ready for medical evacuation. The Just a Nurse had performed battlefield medicine, exceeding anything he'd witnessed in special operations. Rogers, how did you save 12 lives in 18 minutes under enemy fire? Kylie checked her supplies in M4. Sir, they needed medical attention and I provided it. That's what nurses do. Medical evacuation helicopters arrived 30 minutes later. All 12 casualties were evacuated to forward surgical hospitals, where teams continued the care Kylie had begun in the desert. Every single SEAL survived. The after-action medical report became required reading at military medical schools worldwide. The tactical analysis was unprecedented. One Navy nurse had performed battlefield medicine that saved 12 lives using techniques not supposed to be possible in combat conditions. 2 weeks later, Kylie was back at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, officially recovering, but unofficially preparing for her next assignment. The Pentagon wanted her developing new combat medical protocols. Her commanders wanted her leading advanced trauma training. Military researchers wanted studying her techniques. Kylie wanted to get back to taking care of SEALs. What you did wasn't just medical care, Patterson told her. That was battlefield surgery under conditions that would challenge surgeons in fully equipped hospitals. Commander, those were my patients. When patients need care, you provide it. Circumstances don't change the responsibility. 6 months later, Lieutenant Kylie Rogers was promoted to lieutenant commander and assigned to establish the Advanced Combat Medical Training Program. Her innovations became the foundation for modern battlefield medicine, and her techniques were taught to special operations medics throughout the military. The techniques Kylie developed during those 18 minutes became part of standard SEAL medical training. Military instructors teach courses on combat medical procedures and battlefield trauma surgery based on her methods, but they also teach something more fundamental: that elite medical personnel are defined not by their equipment or their environment, but by their refusal to let patients die when medical intervention can save them. Her innovative approach to simultaneous medical care and defensive operations became known as Rogers Protocol throughout special operations medicine. The protocol emphasized adaptability, resourcefulness, and the integration of combat skills with medical expertise. Training facilities began incorporating live-fire exercises with medical scenarios, preparing combat medics for situations where saving lives required fighting for the opportunity to provide care. The psychological impact on SEAL teams was profound. Knowing that their medical personnel could provide life-saving care under any conditions gave operators confidence that improved performance in high-risk missions. The bond between combat personnel and medical staff strengthened significantly as SEALs recognized that medics were not just support. They were integral warriors whose battlefield was the human body. 18 months later, Kylie received the Silver Star for her actions. The citation read, "For gallantry in action while serving as medical officer with a Navy SEAL element during combat operations. Lieutenant Commander Rogers' exceptional medical skill, innovative trauma techniques, and unwavering dedication resulted in the survival of 12 critically wounded personnel under extreme combat conditions." The award ceremony recognized not just individual heroism, but a transformation in how special operations viewed combat medicine. Senior military leadership acknowledged that Rogers had redefined the role of medical personnel in elite units, proving that healing and fighting were not separate functions, but complementary aspects of mission success. The ceremony was held at the Pentagon, attended by Kylie's family, the SES she'd saved, and senior military leadership. The moment that mattered most came when the 12 SELs approached her individually. "Doc," Rodriguez said, walking on his prosthetic leg, "my daughter asked me to give you something." He handed Kylie a drawing by a 7-year-old showing a woman in military uniform with stethoscope and rifle standing over stick figures labeled "Daddy's Friends" at the bottom. "Thank you for saving Daddy." "Rogers," Patterson said during the reception, "when I first met you, I thought medical personnel were support staff who stay behind lines. You taught me that medical personnel are warriors who fight death instead of enemy soldiers." "Commander, we're all on the same team. We just use different tools to complete the mission." Kylie continued serving in special operations medicine for 4 more years, participating in countless missions where her medical innovations made the difference between success and failure. "The thing about Doc Rogers," Patterson explained to new SEAL medics, "is that she doesn't accept that any medical situation is hopeless. When we thought half our team would die, she found ways to save everyone. That's what makes someone exceptional. Not training or equipment, but refusal to let patients die when medical intervention can prevent it." 5 years later, Commander Kylie Rogers was assigned to lead the Special Operations Medical Research Division. Her laboratory became the center for developing new combat medical techniques that would save lives in future conflicts. "Anyone can learn medical procedures," she would tell new combat medics during their intensive training sessions. "The military teaches trauma surgery, emergency medicine, and casualty evacuation protocols. But what it can't teach is the mindset that refuses to accept patient death when medical intervention can prevent it." She would pause, studying the faces of students who would soon face their own impossible situations in combat zones around the world. The difference between competent medics and exceptional medics isn't technical knowledge or access to advanced equipment. It's the absolute determination to provide medical care regardless of circumstances. It's the certainty that your patients will survive because you refuse to let them die. Her training programs became legendary for their realism and intensity. Students learned to perform complex medical procedures while under simulated enemy fire, to make life or death triage decisions in seconds, and to integrate combat skills with medical expertise seamlessly. The graduation rate was lower than traditional programs, but those who completed Rogers' training were prepared for medical challenges that would have overwhelmed conventionally trained personnel. "I didn't save those SEALs because I was the best medic in the military. I saved them because I refused to accept that their injuries were fatal. When they needed medical care, I provided it. That's what combat medics do." Kylie's innovations became the foundation for modern special operations medicine. Her techniques were studied at medical schools, incorporated into field manuals, and taught to allied medical personnel worldwide. But her greatest contribution wasn't technical. It was philosophical. She proved that medical personnel could be warriors, whose battlefield was the human body, whose weapons were medical instruments, and whose victories were measured in lives saved. The radio transmission that seemed impossible, all 12 casualties stable and ready for evacuation, no fatalities, became legendary throughout the special operations medical community. It represented transformation of certain death into complete survival through medical skill and determination. Kylie Rogers had proven that sometimes the most important battles are fought not against enemy soldiers, but against death itself. And when the right person with the right skills refuses to accept defeat, death loses. She's just a nurse, not combat personnel.
Commander Patterson had been wrong. Kylie Rogers was combat personnel. She just fought a different enemy. And in 18 minutes under enemy fire, she'd won the most important victory any warrior can achieve. She'd brought everyone home alive. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to Ironheart Stories.